Well, welcome on in and let's talk PWHL playoffs. Starting up, we've got our two series set. Montreal, of course, chose Ottawa for their first round playoff opponent. No surprise there. And Toronto will get to play Minnesota in a rematch of last year's first round between those two, where they actually selected Minnesota. So breaking it down for you, and we've got some audio from some of the players. So let's get right to it. I wanted to look first at Toronto, Minnesota, because I was at practice for both teams, so I've got some interviews with players there to share with you on their thoughts about the series and the rematch from last year. This year, the series was really even. There were some notable notes to look at, which is the goaltending, especially the way that was split, and kind of the way some of the games went early versus late. Early in the season, the first meeting was a 6-3 victory for Minnesota. It was really more of a 4-3 or 4-2 game, that a couple empty net goals, but it definitely showed that Toronto was starting the season slowly and Minnesota came out of the gates roaring. No secret to anyone there. But the other games after that were much closer. We had a 4-3 Minnesota shootout win on January 28th, and that was again with Rooney in goal and Reagan Kirk for the Sceptres. On February 11th, we had a 3-2 Toronto overtime win, and that was with the same two goaltenders. So really interesting that Ken Klee started Rooney, but he was doing that early in the season when it seemed like Hensley was struggling a little bit. And the same with the Sceptres and Kristen Campbell struggling a little bit, so they were starting Reagan Kirk. So Ken Klee stuck with Rooney even into February, but the Sceptres went back to Campbell and ended up getting a 2-1 victory at Minnesota, which was huge for Campbell and part of that run of games that the Sceptres were playing really well. In March, when Minnesota visited, that ended up being an overtime victory, and that was Nicole Hensley's return to the net somewhat, and so she only faced 14 shots. It wasn't a great game for the Sceptres, so it looks like Nicole Hensley, I think, is going to be the choice, although Maddie Rooney came in last season in the series and really shut the door on the Sceptres, so we'll have to see. Of course, Ken Klee is not tipping his hand about who's going to start there. So looking at it numbers-wise, because of the overtimes, it's basically 4-2 for Minnesota in the season series. Two of those victories were overtime, and for Toronto, two of the losses were overtime. So they have a shootout win and a regulation victory. It's more the late season play that you look at, maybe where Minnesota has been coming on strong, and Toronto after the international break, a little bit cooler, not maybe having their best game. But look at last year, it was absolutely the opposite. Toronto was first place, feeling good. They selected Minnesota partly because they weren't playing well and kind of backed into the playoffs. So this year, maybe Toronto is needing to shore up their game a little bit, but they definitely have some revenge on their mind, whether they say it overtly or not. In fact, let's listen to a couple of the clips. We've got Blair Turnbull and Natalie Spooner, as well as Sarah Nurse.
For those of us who played in the playoffs last year, there's definitely a fire. We feel that we came up short of our goal and of what we should have achieved. So I think it's a big part of my motivation this year is to win playoffs because I want to win the Walter Cup for this organization and for my teammates, but also I want to prove that we could have got it done last year and we've been able to learn from last year and move forward and take that energy into this playoff season. I think it's different in our league when you compare it to the NHL because our regular season is so much shorter and every game, not that NHL regular season games don't mean as much to those guys as they do to us, but I think like with our 3-point system and everyone's seen how much the standings have shifted throughout the season, it feels to me like our regular season games are played with a different level of intensity than a lot of NHL games that I watch on TV. And I think for us to try to increase our intensity in the playoffs, it's like the same way that they do. Like it takes experience to know how to do that, and it takes having really disciplined practice habits and extremely hard work on and off the ice all the time. And I hope our team is prepared. I think we've been trying our best to prepare for that, but it's one of those things where you have to experience it firsthand to really get a good feel for it. And I think there's a difference with playing at home versus playing an away game in the playoffs too. I think crowds and momentum and having home ice really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I mean, I think obviously last year was heartbreaking, both for me but also for our team, like to, the way it ended. So I think that this year, once you kind of go through that and you feel those feelings, you don't want it to happen again. So I think everyone will be pretty fired up this year, where we know kind of what to expect now. And how to be ready for those games too. I mean, I think for me, for sure, and I think a lot of the girls that were there last year, but at the same time, we have a lot of new girls. They have some new girls too, so I think any playoff game is exciting, but I think, we're going to be as ready as we can for that game. And you definitely, it's in the back of your mind a bit what happened last year. I mean, I think they have a lot of skill, so I think we're just going to have to find ways to shut down. Some of their players can make big plays, and if we give them the time and space, we know they're going to be doing that. So I think we have to just play our aggressive, in-your-face game and not give them that time and that space that they want.
I think that we saw that the margin for error and those little tiny plays that you can get away with in the regular season doesn't work in playoffs. I'll never forget that overtime goal in Minnesota that they ended up scoring. It's like, man, if I would have just done one thing differently on that play, and you kind of have those thoughts that go through your head. But yeah, the margin for error is so small. Things tighten up, and I mean, our games are so tight to begin with in the regular season, and it gets brought to a new level. Well, special teams is huge. We talk about how tight things are in 5-on-5, and obviously we need to be able to produce 5-on-5, but I think at the end of the day, the special teams is the difference maker. If you're able to kill off penalties, if you're able to capitalize on other teams' penalties, that's going to be the difference maker. It's a resounding message that we've had in the locker room all season is that we've been able to have a lot of success, and I don't think that our group has even reached the peak of performance that we can have together. I don't think we've put together that full 60 minutes where everyone's going, and so I think that when we're able to piece that together, it's going to be a pretty scary team. And so we're just excited, sticking to the process and going into the second season, I guess.
And I also got to talk to Daryl Watts about what's going to be her first playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Leafs fan. Most of the girls on the team are huge Leafs fans, so we've been following them. It's been so fun. It's the best time, I think, in the city when the Leafs are in playoffs because the whole city just buzzes for them, and our fans will be buzzing for us, so that'll be another cool experience. Having home ice is huge, so it's awesome that we've secured home ice for the first round, and our fans can now show up and help us early on in the series. I'm gonna play my game, the tighter checking, the higher intensity, more physicality, that's all to be expected, and I think we all just have to raise our game to combat that and just, try to make a difference where I can, even if it's not on the score sheet, just, being hard to play against, things like that, and then taking advantage of power plays and just, rare good opportunities.
Another person that was really interesting to talk to is assistant coach Jim Midgley of the Sceptres. He coaches the power play and mostly the forwards. Here's what he had to say.
It's just for us to making sure we're just building off of what we did, like I said, and getting ourselves ready. The fine little details that are really important come playoff time. I think it's something that we have to make sure we're sharp on, and we're paying attention to little details. So those are things that I think that we'll focus on, moving forward for sure. We had some players that were out of the lineup come back into the lineup, so that's we've had to make some adjustments in terms of our personnel. But that's part of hockey. There's ups and downs in terms of specialty teams, and we had a really good stretch, like you said, that got us into a playoff spot. And as you said, come playoff time, it does tighten up. So it's PK and power play will be really important, as well as the 5-on-5 too. So it's good we get a chance to work on it today. We just want to keep building and heading into the playoffs.
And then Toronto coach Troy Ryan had these comments after the team skated.
It's going to be tight. When you look at all levels of hockey, the people that score in the playoffs, there's usually sort of the unsung hero that finds a way to filter through it all and find a way to score some big goals. You need people that are prepared to do all those little things to make you successful. Like playoff goals are sort of grinding it low, getting net front, going to areas where people aren't willing to go to. But sometimes, as you watch in the NHL, sometimes it's just putting the puck on net, getting a stick on it. So you need people that are willing to play that way. The highlight kind of plays tend to dry up a little bit in the playoffs. So hopefully we just get more people than the opposition that are prepared to do some of those things to be successful. One of the things that's really important in a series is that every play you make is actually an investment that you can potentially benefit from in a series, where in a regular season you may do something against Montreal and the next day you're playing New York. In a series like this, that little bump you make in game one may be a bump that benefits you in game five. So it's the investment you make in your own style of play, you actually benefit from it in a series. So to understand that mentality and the power of it is very powerful in a series.
And we got to chat with rookie Izzy Daniel, who's going to start the playoffs on the first line with Daryl Watts and Sarah Nurse.
I mean, I think for me, I just try to do whatever I can to help the team, no matter what role I'm in or who I'm playing with in the lineup. So we have such amazing players on our team. I feel like we're pretty interchangeable, and I would say I'm a pretty versatile player, and I can play with a lot of people. So, but obviously it's exciting, and I think my first playoff experience, really excited to start at home. I think it's going to be an awesome just experience for me to play in. The energy, our fans are amazing. They're amazing all season. I feel like it's just going to be ramped up a notch in the playoffs, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's just cool, seeing our logo on the ice. That was really cool to see. This has felt like home all year for us, and our fans have packed the building all year. So I think that's definitely, you work to finish in the top two for home ice advantage for a reason. So we're definitely going to try to use that to our advantage. You see it in the NHL playoffs, just the intensity ramps up. People are, I feel like, more willing to, sell out, block shots, little things like that. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but I am expecting another step up. So just trying to be ready for that. Our coaching staff and our leadership group, Blair and Renata, and now Allie, they do a really good job. I definitely feel like I try to lean on them. I'm not so much someone who's asking a lot of questions, but just observing, how they handle themselves, how they prepare, little things like that. Try to emulate that, but I'm still learning. It's definitely a learn on the go type thing in my first year. I think coming from college, in college you're kind of expected and you're forced to try to be friends with everyone because that's just how it is. Everyone's going to be here 4 years. Obviously this team with expansion and stuff is probably going to be, this is the only year we're all going to be together, and nothing has ever felt forced. It's all super genuine in our locker room, and I think it's been awesome. We are all really close. A lot of great friends I've made, not just teammates, but really good friends. So.
And I know this is a little heavy on the Sceptres side of things, but it was their home rink and home practice today, so we got quite a few players to chat with, and one of them is goalie Kristen Campbell.
I think there was a lot to learn last year from the first round playoffs. I think the biggest thing, just managing the highs and the lows. I don't think any one single moment loses you a series, but I think the quicker you can swing the momentum back in your favor, you're better off. So I think just learning from that and knowing going into the series there is a bunch of us who experienced what we did last year and do have the learning takeaways from it, and then there's a bunch of us who never experienced playoffs before. So I think we're all just better off from last year's experience, and we're really looking forward to getting the series going. I think when I had success against them, it was just a really calm, simple game, getting in lanes early, controlling the first shot. They get a lot of pucks on net. They try to create those second chances, so I feel like a strength of mine is my rebound control, so just giving them no second chances and really taking the momentum away from their top players by making those key saves at the right time. So I'll definitely have to do that this series. Yeah, I think just before the puck even drops, there's no working your way into the game. You're going to have to be there from the puck drops, so whatever that looks like, I have strategies that I know to use now to get to that spot so that whatever comes my way, I'm ready for it. And I think as a team, we know that they're a quick start team, so we're going to do whatever we can to shut that momentum from the hop and turn it in our favor right away. I think the biggest thing is I really don't think we've even shown our best hockey yet, and I think that that's encouraging going into the playoffs. Knowing that you believe your team has a whole other gear to produce and to show out there. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to, is seeing all that come together at the right time for us.
And new assistant captain Allie Monroe also had some insight into what the playoffs mean.
Soupy just handles pressure so well. I think she's so dialed in, the way she prepares. Everyone has no doubt in her that she can be one of the best, if the best goalie in the league. So we have all the faith in the world in all of our goalies. Honestly, they can all step in. I have full faith. But Soupy, I know, Soupy's doing everything in her power to be ready for tomorrow. I'm ready for the whole series. So I'm excited to play in front of her. I mean, they have a deep forward group. I think a lot of them are big threats. Obviously, the top names, you got to know who's on the ice sometimes. But I think they're a dangerous team. But I think if we play our game, we can neutralize those top players.
Here's what Minnesota's Taylor Heisey had to say.
We knew it's never going to be a dull moment around here, I think. We had Toronto's number last year and in the playoffs ended up winning, but that's just going to make them want to beat us even more. So we're very excited for this series and we're happy to be matched up against them. I think they're a really great team and we've had really great games this year, so we're assuming the same. Every time, we get out here and we play in this rink, it's like the reminder of we went down 2-0 really quick. It happened in a blink of an eye and we're sent home. And then after that game 3, we ended up scoring in overtime at home and sending it back in the 4th game here, and just realizing that we kind of said we're playing with house money. Playoffs are when the big time players show up, but also this is extra time together. It's extra time to play hard and to work together. So we're all very excited for it. But yeah, I would say for us, we're just more so focused on not the past, not the future right now, and realizing that game 1's tomorrow and starting out strong is how we want to come out. Starting a series 1-0 would be awesome, but coming out of an away series 1-1 would be fine too. Obviously, you don't want to lose a game, but taking a game on the road is important. You see it in the NHL, you see it everywhere. Taking a game on the road can be the reason why you win a series. We definitely have a little bit of a different team and shake it up a little bit, I think. We've been able to play 4 lines consistently last year and pretty consistently this year as well. Having more, I would say, ways to shift, whether that be power play, penalty kill, lines. We're able to move things around a little bit more. We have a little bit more dynamic additions to our 3rd and 4th line that can bring things up, whether that be Dawn Petrie, Britta Curl, Liz Shepard's on the 4th line. Just having people like that who also have experience is key for us, and to have that, I think, is one of the biggest things that we're taking into this year and realizing we have the experience, but hard work can break experience in a second. So making sure that we have both is probably the most important thing for us. Yeah, our goaltending's been awesome. Just like last year, not everyone's going to be able to have a breakthrough season every single season, and they consistently find a way to prove themselves among the leaderboards. And I think it's hard to say when you look at leaderboards and you see, Anne Renee Debian at the top and some other ones as well, but we have 2 that split. You're rarely going to be at the top of the leaderboard when you split games unless it's save percentage, but I think we're very proud of them and we're very happy to have them on our team. And they bring such a not only youthfulness attitude, but they are so excited for each other.
So Fast and Watts were the leading scorers for the Sceptres in the head-to-head series, both with 6 points in the 6 games against Minnesota. Watts, of course, has been on fire and might be really looked at as, the go-to for offense. For the Frost side, they are led by Michaela Cava, who had 4 goals and 3 assists, and defender Claire Thompson with 2 goals and 4 assists. So definitely the D-core from Minnesota, I think, is a real strength. They've got Thompson, they've got Steckline, they've got Jakes, that they can just pile up the minutes, and then after that it falls off a little bit. For Toronto, back on D, of course, you've got Fast and Harmon, and then the somewhat underrated pair of Flanagan and Monroe that I think will really be important. So playoffs to me come down to 2 things, special teams and goaltending. So it's going to be important for Campbell to step up with Reagan Kirk probably not starting game 1. We've got CJ Jackson backing up, but it's going to be a big load for Campbell. And I'm not going to give predictions exactly. I just think it's going to be a different series. I think low scoring like it was last year, but I don't think it's going to start out with Toronto rolling a little bit and Minnesota definitely, flipping it on its head. I think it's just going to be tighter from start to finish. Let's say that. And I think this one could go 5 games. Hi, here's that awkward break in a podcast, where usually there'll be some kind of message that I'll read about a betting site or a product that somehow has very little to do with the actual content. But guess what? This podcast is brought to you by you. If you're looking on the screen, you can see our PayPal address is simply GameDay Hockey spelled out, the number 1 at gmail.com. As much as you want, as regularly or not as you want. We're not brought to you by anybody. We're not sponsored. We're not promoted. We're not restricted by anybody. For today, it's just simply send us $1 or $2 on PayPal. And if you're listening on Spotify, there's a way to support us on there as well with a regular or a one-time donation. So again, this podcast is brought to you by you. And that's the end of the break. All right, so going to the second series, we have Montreal, the first place team, choosing Ottawa. That was technically the third place team. Nobody's making too much of that because all those teams finished with 44 points, including Boston, who got eliminated, even though they had the same number of points. So Ottawa finished with that impressive overtime victory to get into the playoffs. You can sense the energy around that team. And this series was close. It was basically, again, I guess I'd say 4-2. Montreal had 3 regulation wins and 1 overtime win. Ottawa, though, won the last 2 games against Montreal with Gwyneth Phillips in net, which is interesting. They beat Montreal at Ottawa 3-1, and that was with Desbiens in net. And then April 26th, just at the end of the season here, they beat them 3-2. That was with Chuli in net for Montreal. So Maschmeyer, of course, took the early games for Ottawa and lost, 3 of those. And then she was hurt in the game at Montreal on January 29th. That's when Phillips took over, and that was a 4-1 victory. So maybe that skews it a little bit. I think people are assuming this will be a Montreal victory, and I'm going to agree, but I just think Ottawa might have something to prove. It depends whether they maybe have a little bit of that happy to be here factor. They're going to need to start strong going into Montreal. So that, to me, comes down to Montreal's forwards and basically Ottawa's D and goaltending. Ottawa hasn't had the strong scoring like many of the other teams. They've really had spread out scoring except for, of course, Teresa Vanishova, who had 15 impressive goals. But Emily Clark, Brianne Jenner, Cheyenne Darkangelo, those are the players that have scored for Ottawa after that, and it's really been spread out. So they're going to need some contributions from Brianne Jenner. They play much better when she scores. They tend to win.
Yeah, I think really proud of our organization that we were able to make this step. But obviously, I think, we're not satisfied just to make the playoffs. We're really excited to go in and give our absolute best in this first series. And I think just really excited for our fans, especially, knowing who we're playing. I think both fan bases are going to really get up for these games. And, as a player, I think it's a dream come true to be able to play in a playoff series. This is a unique opportunity that I haven't had in my career to actually have a series to play. I've always, been a little jealous of the NHL pros getting to have that opportunity. So I'm just thrilled and cannot wait. And I think what makes it special, too, is just the proximity. I think you're going to see some fans probably making the trek to the opposing arena. I think it's going to be really cool for Canadian hockey fans across the country to tune into this. It's nice to see on the men's side there's a lot of Canadian teams left, and obviously in our league, each Canadian team did well to make it into the postseason.
It's a team effort. There's a speed component. There's a physicality. There's just a puck movement piece that, when we know we're on, we can feel it. We feel it on the bench, and there's just a camaraderie on the bench. It's an incredible bunch of women on our team here. It's nice. We're at our best when we're enjoying it and we're having fun and we're competitive. And I think that's what we lean into in the games. And we've been able to find some success, particularly in the second half, as we built this out.
Goaltending's critical in this league. That's for every team that's in this league. And we're fortunate that in Ottawa we've got an incredible goaltending world. All 3 goalies this year, and we brought Lucy in here not long ago. So the 4 of them, they just keep building each other up. They keep working hard every day. For Gwyneth, it's just a pleasure to watch her. When you talk about watching a player play, she's such the consummate player. She just loves moments. She just enjoys stopping the puck. Like, I can only imagine a video of her when she was like 4 years old. She's just the best, just loving street hockey. Like, there's a passion that shows when she plays, and I think it's infectious, and I think she's such a competitor. So
she's obviously stepped into a moment that we wouldn't naturally have predicted, but it's part of sport. I think Amaranth has done an incredible job continuing to work with her and support her, and I think Logan and Lucy are continuing to be an incredible crew back there, and I think we're very fortunate in Ottawa to have all of them.
Players that were here last year, you got to look at things like that as lessons. You can't, you don't want to ignore it, but in the same breath, this is a different team, a different season, and the group that was there last year, I think we definitely want to learn and take that as a lesson. But honestly, being someone that was here last year, that's not in my mind. I'm all in on this season and this group, and it's a different story.
For Montreal, of course, the top scorers are Poulin, Stacey, and Gardner, and that's a line that is just going to have to be on fire, and I expect it to be so. But Gwyneth Phillips is going to be an X factor. She played those 2 games and won. Desbiens is, I think, the best goaltender in the league this year, so she's going to have a lot to prove just coming back from her injury, but I think she's going to be an important factor. Again, you're going to say special teams and goaltending, and a little bit for this one, coaching. Carla McLeod will be making her first appearance in the playoffs, of course, and she's got some interesting ways to fire up her team. Play to her identity, strong forecheck, energy all the time, play fast. So are they going to wear down that Montreal D that has had some injuries? We don't know for sure about Mariah Keppel, if she's going to play, and Anna Wilgren. And you've got Dominika Laskova, who hasn't played the minutes with Montreal that she had played with the Czech team. So are they going to rely on some of those bottom D to, take some minutes away from Ambrose and Kayla Barnes? Or are they going to lean heavily on the top line and top D again? If the series goes longer, I think it starts to favor Ottawa if that's the case. But of course, you've got some secondary play in Montreal this year that they didn't have last year. Abby Boreen, of course, has been great. Claire Dalton, Michaela Grant-Mentis, and you're going to need a performance from Kristen O'Neill. Her face-offs are great. She's going to need to play some second-line minutes and show that she can take those on. You've got Maureen Murphy, who can contribute some offense. I think it can be some surprise scorers there as well.
Playoffs are won with your third and fourth lines and your depth scoring and the unsung heroes and the unlikely heroes, and I think that we have a lot of those in the making, and some players that kind of fly under the radar. I thought Dalton was going to finish it there in overtime. A player like Dalton who can just come out of nowhere, and with LaBelle's been so impactful back in our lineup, taking some of those really important draws for us. So I feel very confident where our roster is right now, and we're just kind of building that momentum and building that steam back. So I'm looking forward to the next few games.
I mean, the hard part is that, a lot of the team is different from last year. So, us as a coaching staff and the players who went through a playoff series last year, which was a hard fought playoff series, would certainly draw on the experience of that. But we're a new team. We've got, a mission, and we're sticking to that as a group. But in terms of bringing up last year, it would fall short and not land quite right with the majority of the team. So we focus on the team that we have this year and sticking to our process every single game and every single practice. And if we do that, we're setting ourselves up for some success.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about last year all we want, honestly. It was a lesson for all of us. And I think if anybody watched Ted Lasso being a goldfish, I think that's something we can take. Honestly, the amount of work that's been put in from last year to this year, people are excited, and we know it's going to be physical. It's going to be playoff hockey. It's going to be hard, and for us, it's going to be whoever is ready to go for 60 minutes. And honestly, being that consistent team, that relentless, that gritty team that's going to be there day in and day out to show up is going to be very important. And series are hard, and that was hard last year. It's going to be harder even this year. So it's up to us to be ready and bring the new girls in to what playoff is all about. Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate to have amazing goalies in Montreal. Honestly, like we can talk about Anne, but I think if we look around a little bit in the way we split the game with Julie as well coming in big games, been pretty amazing to see. But to see Anne backing us up day in and day out in those games has been unbelievable. And every time you see her back there, we have that confidence. That we can try a little bit more, a little bit. Maybe we can get she can bail us out on our little mistakes, but she's quite confident. She's a wall back there, and we're pretty happy to have her back with us after that injury. Honestly, she worked so hard to be back for a World Championship, to be back for the rest of the season. So it's been unbelievable. But honestly, we have a trio back in Montreal with Sandra, Julie, and Anne that they've been pushing pretty hard to get better every day. So it's been amazing to see.
You just can't look past, though, the Poulin factor. No matter who she's playing and how much they try to cover her, she's going to have an impact on these games. So look for Phillips to come up big if you're an Ottawa fan and you're looking straight at Poulin, Stacey, and Gardner if you're a Montreal fan. I think Desbien's performance is kind of a given, so Ottawa's going to have to really dig for offense. I think this one's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be as close as the Minnesota-Toronto series. I think Montreal has the decided edge against Ottawa, but you never know, and anything can happen in the PWHL. Most games are one goal. We saw, of course, overtime go on and on last year with Montreal-Boston. I think for sure you can guarantee that you're going to have some overtime games in both of the series. And those games are absolutely important, clutch minutes, because if you're putting in that extra time and you end up losing, I think there is a bit of a fall off. So, come back here and check if I'm right that teams that lose in overtime tend not to win series. That's just the way it goes. So what are you looking for in these two series? And what do you think of what the players had to say about how things tighten up and offense is harder to come by in the playoffs? Who do you think wins? Montreal, Ottawa, the all-Canadian matchup, guaranteeing that we're going to have a Canadian team in the final. And then, interestingly, we've got the rematch. Does it turn out differently? Have the teams learned from their first season series there? Who plays goal for Minnesota? Do they stick with one throughout the series? Or do they use both as they did last year? Lots of questions to be answered. And we're really, really looking forward to both of these series and the first round getting underway. So be sure to come back here. We'll have more interviews with the players as these go on, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.